So let's do some factorizing. So we're still busy with algebra. We said calculating things, we get plus and minus, we've done that. We've got times and divide and brackets. And exponents we're not going to do right now. And all of that is simplify. These ones mostly make linear equations. If we've got quadratic equations like these ones here, that's got exponents, then we're going to need to factorize. So we're not solving equations now, we're just looking at how to factorize. So don't get confused. There's not going to be an equal in our sum. There's no solve for x. They just give us some numbers and tell us to factorize. So first I want to show you the two different sides of this. On the one hand, we've got products, and on the other hand, we've got factorizing. So think about it like this. When more in primary school, and maybe this year a little bit, last year a little bit, let's say we had 3 times 4. Okay, times is a product. Equals 12. Remember we call that multiples. Now, on this side, factorizing, what are the factors of 12? The factors of 12 is 1 and 12 and 2 and 6 and 3 and 4. So I'm not going to write all of them now, just so that you can see it's the opposite. So this side here, we basically have divide, because we're looking at what is 12, and 3 divided by what gives us 12? A 4. Okay, if you hated that section completely and you're like, please don't confuse me with stuff I hate, then it's okay. We don't have to. Let's do it in an algebra way. Many people who struggle with numbers are actually better with algebra, like me for example. Let's say we've got x plus 5. What do we get when we do that? Remember we have brackets, so it's distributive law. Brackets means times, so we multiply it into this one. X times x is x squared. X times positive 5 is positive 5x. And that's our answer. Okay, now this was a product. We multiplied. Now factorizing is basically starting with a question on this side and moving to the brackets. So what we need to do here is make brackets. Here we want to get rid of brackets. So here we want to say get rid of brackets. But here we want to do the opposite. We make brackets. So I give you this. This is our sum now. So we basically, our question on this side is our sum from the other side. And I tell you, factorize it. So this type of factoring is called common factors. So what we do is we look at these two. So we've got 2 terms. 1 term, 2 terms. What do they have in common? This one has an x and that one has an x. So our common factor is an x. Oops. So what we need to do, we ask what is the common factor. We write it down. X is the common factor. Then we make brackets. And in brackets, we have to write what is left when we get rid of this x. So we have two things. There's two terms, so we need two terms in our bracket as well. So I said here we times. This was times. Now we're dividing. So we take this one and we divide it by our common factor. And we take this one and we divide it by our common factor. So whenever I say you take something out, it means you divide it. So here, that was our common factor that we're dividing away on both sides. So x squared divided by x gives us x. Over here, 5x divided by x gives us positive 5. And that is our answer, which is the same as I had here in my question. So if I go times this out with distributive law, I'll get back to that. Let's do a couple of examples to practice. So remember, factorizing, we make brackets using divide. This is for common factors. Let me just write that down here for you. This is specifically common factors. And common factors is also every single time when you do a sum, oops, that's better. Every single time when you do any factorizing sum, you have to check for common factor first. It's always the first one we do. Let's do an example. Factorizing, common factor first. Make brackets. Right. Let's say okay, so we're looking at that and we're asking ourselves, what type of factorizing do we have? You know it's common factor because that's what we're doing at the moment. But how do you know? Because none of these, all of these terms has something in it that is the same, that we can get rid of. Let me go like this a bit. There we go. Okay, so what is common in all of these? The 3. That one can also divide by 3. That one can also divide by 3. So 3 is a common factor. Don't stop there. What else do they have? This one has an x, that one has an x, and that one has an x. So x is also a common factor. We're not going to take out x squared. You're always going to look for the lowest exponent. Let's go like this here. We want to make brackets. We're going to use divide, and we want to take out the lowest exponent. Okay, our lowest exponent is x. So the next step, we're making brackets. We've got 3 terms here, so we want 3 terms in our bracket. How are we going to get them? We're going to use divide. So divide by 3x, divide by 3x, and divide by 3x. This part here with the dividing, you don't have to write down, you can do it in your head, but especially if you're struggling and you're just practicing, write it down so that you don't forget. So 3 divided by 3 is 1. Then here we've got 2 x's, here we've got 1x, so we're left with 1x. Here we've got 12, so this is positive and positive, so it stays positive. 12 divided by 3 is 4. X divided by x is 1. We don't need to write it down because there's other stuff. And the y stays where it is. Positive and negative is negative. 3 divided by 3 is 1. X divided by x is 1, so we only have 1 left. Okay. So let me just quickly show you something here. Let's just take this one and write it here. 3. So x squared is x times x. Remember I said we can just write a dot. We don't have to actually write a times. And we have divide by x, which means we had a 3x, didn't we? That one can cancel out with that one. And cancel out basically means if we divide, the answer is 1. That one, and then this one is left. So 2 minus 1 is 1, but we don't really need to write it. Over here, those two cancelled out, we divided, and the y just stayed there because nothing happened to it. And if we divide things, think about this. If we've got, what's 2 divided by 2? 1. What's 5 divided by 5? 1. So what's x divided by x? 1. What's 3x divided by 3x? Still 1. Same thing at the top, same thing at the bottom. We always get 1. So you've got to write that 1 down because we've got 3 terms here, so we must have 3 terms here. Let's do another. Let's say okay, so let's see. What is our common factor? Keep falling out of the video. That's better. Okay, so what is our common factor? Numbers first. They can all divide by 5. Let's look at our variables. They all have an x. What is the lowest exponent? 1. Then let's look at our y's. What's the lowest exponent? 2. So we've got our common factor. We want brackets and we want 1, 2, 3 terms in our bracket. 1, 2, 3. So how are we going to get those? We're going to divide it by the common factor. So, what have we got left? 15 divided by 5 is 3. Here we've got 3 x's and here 1. So, 3 minus 1 is 2. And y squared is the same, so it's just 1. 5 divided by 5. Well, here we can immediately see it's exactly the same at the top and at the bottom. The sign stays the same and we've got 1. Here, 20 divided by 5, both are positive. 20 divided by 5 is 4. And that's the same, so we just have 4. Cool. But check here now. We've got two like terms in our bracket here. So we can add them. Whenever we've got like terms anywhere, add them together. We could have, when you got the question, you could have seen, ooh, like terms, and you could have added them together. But if you only do it here in your answer, it's actually easier. Well, I mean, in this case, the numbers look easier. So 4 minus 1 is plus 3. All right. Okay, I just want to show you here quickly. What happened here now is that these two, do you see that? They're common. So that means there's another common factor here. It does happen sometimes. Sometimes when you are busy with your sum, you don't necessarily see, oh, those are like terms, I can add them first. Or maybe you take out a common factor and only later do you realize, oh, I took out 2 as a common factor, but actually it was 6. So when you get to the final end, look first before you stop. Are there like terms that I can add? Is there something else that is also a factor that I missed at the beginning? So here, 3 is another common factor. So what we do now, we had this as a common factor, right? But now we've got another common factor. So it must be, so we can take that one out as well. But these two are multiplied together. And here in our bracket we've got x squared plus 1. Because this divided by 3 divided by 3. So now, let me just move the screen a little bit. So here we've got 15 xy squared, because 5 times 3 is 15. And in our brackets, we've got x squared plus 1. Okay. So what I want you to do, before you move to harder things in your book, like use your textbook for revision. The nice thing is, when you're using your textbook for revision, you actually have the answers, because you've already done them in class, hopefully. Then you can start from the simple ones, because in a textbook they're always laid out easy ones first, a little bit harder, a little bit harder, a little bit harder. But what I'm doing in my videos is I don't do 10,000 of each before I move to a little bit harder and a little bit harder. So I'm adding in slight little, oopsie, what about this one? If this happens, oopsie, what about if this happens? All together. I'm not going step by step as they do, you know, many of easy, many of medium, many of hard. So please go through your textbook and do the exercises. When you get to a stage where you're like, okay, I'm bored now, that means I understand. Then go to the next exercise, because the next exercise would be one extra little thingy that makes it a little bit harder. Then go to the next exercise, because that's one little extra thing that makes it a little harder. And then you're always welcome to come re-watch the video again and again if you see, ooh, wait, I think this was one of those ones that you did. So you can re-watch the videos again and again when you get to factorizing, when you're doing, when you get to harder things in your book, or when you just want to do revision for your exams. Alright, I think I'm going to do one more common factor one, and then we can do a next video with trinomials. Let's see. Okay, I just want to make a note here on the side with my notes. So we said we're making brackets, you're using divide to make brackets. We're taking out the lowest exponent, and when you think you're done, Double check if there isn't something else you can do. How shall I write that? Let's say check to see if you can do more. Okay, so if you think you're done, check to see if you can do more, because that happens sometimes. Especially when we've got two types of factorizing in the same sum, but we'll get to that when we've done all the other types of factorizing. Okay, let's make it like this. Okay, I'll make that a minus, and this a minus. Okay. Common factor. Let's see, what do they have in common? So we've got, remember I said here, look there, what did I say? Signs, then numbers, then variables when we did the multiplication, right? This is the same, because remember divide is just the opposite of multiplication. So we also have to look at our signs first. With all our previous sums, it was all positive. It all had a positive number to start off with. But now we're starting with a negative number. So we need to take that negative out as a common factor. Now let's look here. 49, 14, 21. So 7 is our common factor with the numbers. X, they all have an X. Lowest exponent is 1. They all have a Y. Lowest this one doesn't have a Y. So it's not a common factor. Double check all your terms. So now we divide by minus 7x, minus 7x, minus 7x. And in our bracket, we want 1, 2, 3 terms. So here minus and minus is plus, that we don't have to write. 49 divided by 7 is 7. And x divided by x is 1, so it falls away. Minus and minus is plus. 14 divided by 7 is 2. X squared divided by x, so it's 2 minus 1, so there's 1x left. And there's a y left, because it doesn't cancel out. Plus and minus is minus. 21 divided by 7 is 3. X divided by x is 1, so it cancels. And we've got y to the power 3 left. So let's double check. Here we had 7x. There's nothing else we can take out. So to check to see if we can do more. We've got 47, and 7 gives us 7. There's an x that we took out. So what you can always do is if you get to the end, you can test it. If you multiply this in, you're going to get back to that answer. So you can just double check everything. Yes, that is correct. Here, yes, those x cancelled and that one stayed. Okay, double check your answers as you go. Right, next one. Okay, now check what I'm going to do here. What is our common factor? So remember, a common factor is something that is the same in all the terms. That's one term, that's another term. So what is the same? The only thing that's the same is this entire bracket. Remember I said before in a previous video, we can't mess with the stuff in the brackets. We can't change the stuff in the bracket. We can't just say A. We can't say A and B. That whole bracket is one thing and we can't change what's inside. So that whole bracket is our common factor. Okay, and what do we have to do? I don't know if the light is failing me a little bit. So what do we have to do? In brackets, we have to write down what's left over. We have two terms here, so we have two terms here. So what have we got? Whenever we've got a minus at the front, we also have to take out a minus. So now I'm taking out the minus and I'm taking out the bracket because that's the things that's the same. Okay, so we take the minus, so we take each term and divide it by our common factor and divide by our common factor. Okay, so here we've got the minus and the minus becomes a plus. And here, that whole bracket and that whole bracket is the same. So divided, it becomes 1. So we've got left over 2x. Over here, plus and minus makes minus. That whole thing cancels that whole thing, and we've got left over 5y. And that is our answer. So remember, brackets can also be common factors, and then you remove the whole bracket as it stands. Okay, let's do another one with brackets. And say we have so we're factorizing, we're looking for a common factor. What is the same? So if we start with a minus, we always take out a minus. I feel like I'm going further and further away from the camera. There we go. So we take out a minus. Now 4 and 2. What is the common factor there? They can both divide by 2. X and X, they both have an X. Y, it doesn't have a Y. If you get stuck or confused or whatever, show yourself, that's my one term, that's my other term, so you can check which one's the same in these two. Then we also have a bracket. That's the same on both sides. This one has the bracket, that one has the bracket. So this whole thing is our common factor. What do we have to do? We took out our common factor, and in brackets we write down what is left. There's 2 terms here, so there's 2 terms in our bracket. Okay, then we divide our common factor to see what we've got left. And we do it on both sides. Okay, Okay, so minus and minus is plus. 4 divided by 2 is 2. X divided by x is 1. They're the same, they cancel. And here we've got a y that doesn't change because there's no y here. And now, this bracket here is squared, which means there's 2 of these brackets. But I only took out 1. So what's left? 1 of these brackets is left. Because I took out 1 of them, but there was 2 there. Okay, here we've got minus and minus is plus. 2 divided by 2 is 1. X divided by x is 1. That bracket divided by that bracket is 1. So that's what we've got. Okay, so we have, I'm just going to rewrite it, a plus b. That was our common factor. And in brackets, what we have left that's what we had left. Please don't let the brackets confuse you. If you like, you can always just write the brackets and leave them empty until the end, and you can go fill in what's inside them. Because the brackets has to stay the same. Whatever's inside there can't be changed. And the brackets was a common factor here. So what you can do, you can put them in different colors. Or what you can also do is take this bracket, go, this is a different bracket than that bracket, and actually write it like this as a block bracket. So a block bracket and a squiggly bracket and a bracket, a round bracket. In this case, it doesn't matter which one we use. It just makes it easier for us to see what's going on if we use different types of brackets in the same sum. Alright, so this is probably the hardest that common factors can get. So practice it, because common factors, you see them so often. It's the most common of the factors. Right, that's that for now. See you later.